Okay, so before we start in on our review, we had some questions that some people had on lesson 5. And I'm just going to go over one quick question that seems to be our main question so far before we do this. Someone had a question on number 23 on the homework. Okay? Now 23 on the homework has something like this, and we're not going to solve it all the way through. I don't think we quite have time for that, but I will show you how to set it up. Okay, so we have an angle, and we're just going to call them like 1, 2, 3, 4. Sound fair? We do something like that just to help us talk about what each of them are. So this one was equal to 2y plus 50 degrees. And this one here is 5y minus 17 degrees. Now over on the right-hand side of things, 7x minus 248 and x plus 44. Okay? Now, it looks scary because, heck, there's a lot of big numbers and there's 2 different variables. How do I even know where to begin? What do we know about these angles as a whole? Can I say that they're right angles? No. I can't assume that. I can work out that I do have a line intersecting with another line. So can I find something that might be true for angles 1 and 4? If I have a line right here, what must be true for angle 1 and angle 4?
They gotta be the same.
Both y.
They both what?
Y.
Well, they're both y, that's important. I wouldn't try this trick on doing a y and an x. So yes, it is important that both of these are y's. But in order for this to be a straight line from 1 through 4, and I have their non-common sides as a line, they are a linear pair. Does that make sense? To make a line, they're a linear pair where the 2 angles, 1 and 4, add up to 180. So then I just go, okay, 2y plus 50 plus 5y minus 17 equals 180. Can I solve that? Yeah. And then you're going to do the same thing on the x side. Is that nearly as hard as you thought it was going to be?
Well,
You have a question?
I got the answer for y was 21, but I somehow got 2.2, and then for x I got 4.8 when the answer was 48. I don't know if that. I don't know what I did wrong.
How do you know what the answer, like you're saying your answer and the answer are different?
Well, I looked in the back of the books so that I
Okay.
could look at the answer and then try to get the answer right so that.
Okay, well, let's solve this through, because I will say answer keys can be wrong. I have found things in here that have been wrong. It happens. You know, did we spell things wrong? Yes. You think it because it's published, it's free of mistakes? No. So let's take a look at this. 2y plus 5y, 7y. 50 subtract 17. Okay, right now that makes it 33. I'm just trying to take it a little slow here. 7y is equal to, subtract 33 from both sides, 147. Y equals 147 over 7. It's not really nice. What is 147 divided by 7? And check, have I done my math right? Like, I make mistakes, especially if I'm in a hurry. 147 divided by 7, and that equals 21. So that was the answer in the back of the book?
Yes.
Now you said you got 2 point something?
2.2.
How do you think you got that?
Well, I think, first of all, I subtracted the 2y with the 5y and I got 3y instead of 7y. Maybe that's
Why did you do that? Not sure?
I'm not really sure.
This part makes sense at the moment, correct?
Yeah.
Like I said, I can make mistakes too. Sometimes when I start trying to do this and this and this all at the same time, I make mistakes. So that's why I decided, well, I'm just gonna do the 50 minus 17 on this side and deal with that later with the 180. And I'm always double checking 170, 180, if I add these two together. So I can solve for x in a very similar way. Okay? So really what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get you guys to get these assignments in so I can get you feedback right away. And it's really hard when things are coming in well past the due date. Makes it difficult for us to get things done in time.
When was this due?
I said Saturday, okay, because I had stuff. Don't just get it done.
I understand it now. Oh my god, thank you.
Okay, that's fabulous. I'm going to give a little bit of grace here because of our panic and confusion for the end of last week. I understand that, but you still need to get it done so I can get you the feedback, and we're not going to sweat the rest as long as it comes in quickly. So what I really want to go over right now is this test that everyone freaked out on, okay? Grades were all over the place. There were good grades, there were not so good grades. Your grades show on Google Classroom. I've also put the grades not in RenWeb, but in the comment for this for RenWeb. I counted this as like a daily grade in the end, as like, yes, you did it. Tomorrow we're going to redo this. Very similar, but not the same. So you can't just plug in the same numbers. You can't even necessarily do it the exact same way, but it's going to be extremely similar. So be careful. You had a question?
Oh, I was just gonna ask if I could check, but never mind.
No, do it later, okay? Now, this is going to shock you guys, okay? I made a mistake.
No.
It happens. I tell you that all the time. And some people did this correctly, and some people did not. And to me, as a result, it didn't matter to me if you did it right or not, as long as you followed whatever formula you said you were going to follow. Okay? I mistakenly put in pluses here. So some people were able to solve it, and they knew that there needed to be minuses. That's actually what they did in the work. Some people put pluses because they were following what I had given them. I still gave you full credit for it if that's what you were doing and that's what you're following. Okay? Because this is what I had given you. Obviously, if you didn't follow either of them, it's hard for me to give you credit for it. But anytime that we have the distance formulas, I have to look at the difference from point 2 to point 1. Does that make sense? And I should have caught that. I could explain to you where my brain went and why I put that in wrong, but it's not going to help you. It had to do with that Pythagorean theorem once again. Okay? Distance formulas, always x2 minus x1. Always, always. Or y2 minus y1. And then these two were both midpoint formulas. And with midpoints, all I'm trying to do is add the two locations together, divide by 2, so I can find what's in the middle. So in this case, these are pluses, but these ones had to be minuses. So you didn't have any penalties as a result. It might have led to some confusion, and I apologize. But I make mistakes too, and it would have been nice if someone would have said, hey, but no one managed to, partly because of the panic, and we were just trying to get things done, as we could. So let's go over each question. Okay. What does collinear mean?
They're in the same line.
They have to be in the same line. I'm looking for points that are on the same line with these two. Okay? Now, the majority of people did get this right, because the only one that could be in there is B. Okay? Now, if I were to ask how many points in this image is B collinear with, how many points would that be?
4.
4, because it's collinear with A, C, E, and D. Okay? D, they show how this line ED intersects the plane by showing this dotted line where it goes behind and underneath. Okay. Some people actually didn't get this one. Name the point of intersection of plane M and line DE. You're asked for naming a point again. I have to find plane M. Well, that's this whole plane that we see here. And line DE, which is like a straw punching through the paper. And once again, you should have point B. Okay? Now, this one here, question 3, find the measure of the line segment A and L. Fairly simple. Not everyone got it. I get it because of the betweenness of points. I know that if I have a point N in between two other points, that the sum of all the line segments has to equal the whole. Okay, so I have MN equaling 2.1. I have NL equaling 5.8. And I'm asked, hey, what is this section right here? How can I find that?
Subtract 21.
Okay. Now, this ends up being similar to something later on, but they make it sound a little bit more complicated. But I'm going to show you something, how this is this simple, okay? And how you're going to use the same thing later on in the test, because this is like saying MN plus NL equals ML. Does that make sense to you? This chunk plus this chunk totals to be the whole thing. Make sense? Now you guys, please feel free to take notes. Take down every bit. Otherwise, you can watch the video again later. I'm posting this video for our classmates who are at home, because they need, obviously, to see this too. Okay. Name an acute angle. What are some possibilities? There was definitely more than one. What could I have named? DBE. What else? How about EBD? Same thing, just in reverse. Can I say BDE?
No.
Why not?
Because the vertex is always in the middle.
Because the vertex has to be in the middle. Always make sure that that central point where the two rays are crossing has to be that middle point when naming the angle. Okay, I also could have said angle ABD or DBA. All of those would have been acceptable there. What type of angle is ABC?
Obtuse.
Obtuse. Can you name me another obtuse angle?
DBC.
DBC. So ABC, DBC, CBD, CBA. Which? You had a question?
No.
Okay, sorry. Thought I heard something. Name an angle that appears to be a right angle. Notice I said appears. We don't know that it is.
ABC.
ABC?
EBC.
Oh, that sounds better. EBC. Okay, EBC or CBE. Do we know that it's a right angle? No. The only way we would know was if we had this, but we don't. We don't know really what that is. It just appears to be close to a right angle.
Also, technically, angle EBA was an acute.
EBA is what?
An
Is
acute
acute.
angle.
You're right. I would say that EBA. So Nathan points out angle EBA or ABE also is acute. I would agree. It was definitely less than 90. Okay. Now here's where it starts to get tricky and people start going, oh, what do I do? Because we immediately think everything has to be a formula that we're applying from up above. That's not necessarily the case. Some of these, if you apply some common sense on top of that, really your life gets easier. Okay? So find the value of y if m is the midpoint of segment Ln. M is the midpoint. What is a midpoint? What? The middle. Okay. So this is exactly in the middle. If that's exactly in the middle, what can I say about the two halves? They're halves. Those two have to be exactly the same in order for M to be the midpoint. So now I know, okay, since this is given, 9y minus 4 equals 6y plus 5. Can I solve for that? Okay. Get the y's on one side. I tend to try to keep something positive. So I'm going to subtract 6y into the 9y and get 3y. Add 4 on this side. Add 4 to this side. Now I need to go back and double check. Is there anything else that I need? Find the value of y if m is the midpoint of segment Ln. Do I have everything? Yes. Nothing further was needed. In some of the questions to follow, people didn't do the second half. They didn't finish. It's like they went up for the basket, you know, they're all set, and they stopped. Okay, it's hard to give you guys the points, hard to give you guys the credit if we don't finish. In this case, all you needed was the y. And I'm going to switch because this one keeps slipping on me today. Okay. That feels a little bit better. The next one tells us to find the value of x and AC. I need to know both of these. And we know that B is between A and C. Okay? Is B the middle?
Yeah. Or,
Why do you say that?
no, never mind.
You're not sure now?
Yeah.
Is there anyone else that thinks B's the middle?
Yeah, B is the middle, but it's also not because.
It's in between.
Yeah.
In between is not the same thing as the middle.
That's what I was gonna kind to say.
Okay,
Because I didn't know what you were, like, meaning.
I understand that. I'm just asking, do we know, like, here it said that M was the midpoint. Does this say that B is the midpoint? No. So I cannot say that AB equals BC. That's not true. But just like that ruler one earlier where we knew one part and we needed the whole thing and we could figure out that other part, we're going to do the same thing here. This part plus this part together will equal the whole thing. And Melanie, if you need to move up so you can see a little bit better, I'm sure you can see a lot better from one table in front. I don't mind if you move. Okay? AB plus BC equals AC. Is that anything new? Like if you were sharing like licorice with your friends or whatever. Okay? This is like having a piece of licorice and I break it and it's not quite even. And you stick it back together and you're like, look, nothing's missing. That's all that's happening. Okay, AB plus BC equals the whole thing. So now I plug in everything else that they gave us. Okay, this is true because of betweenness of points. And now I just have to plug in the values. AB is 12. BC, 8x minus 2, and the whole thing equals 20x. Solve for x. That doesn't look so scary now. But you do have to be careful. A lot of people actually screwed up on this at this point. Because although they got this, they didn't do their algebra right. Okay, and this is pretty low-level algebra. What I might want to do first is combine the x's, okay? I have to subtract 8x and subtract 8x, so I just get the x's on this side.
Wait, what are you subtracting not add?
Because in order to get rid of it on this side, I have to take away 8. And I take away 8. So now I'm left with 12, subtract 2. Now, a large number of people in both periods said that x equals 6/5. For some reason, they shifted these numbers and they put the big one on top. And I don't know why. Okay? In order to solve for x, I have to divide by 12, divide by 12. So 10/12 equals x. I can also simplify that and call that 5/6. Anyone lost? Okay. Now, I think part of what bothered some people on these was you weren't sure how to read a graph. Okay? This is the origin. And we have those points around us. We have an x-axis and a y-axis. Whenever we talk about points, x comes before y. Sound familiar? So all I need to do is count positive, count negative, count positive, count negative. Find the distance between R and S. I needed to find a distance, and I need to locate these points. True? Okay, let's find point R. R is x is -2, y is +2. S, x is 1, 2, 3, 4, y is +1. Now I need to plug it into a formula. Okay, I need a distance formula that has two different coordinates, the x and the y. Okay, and this is the one that I had messed up on. RS is equal to the square root of, and it should be x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. It is really, really important that x comes before y, sorry, x2 comes before x1, and that the x and the y's are separated. It's also really important, this symbol right here, the whole thing, many of you dropped it. You got to later on and you just left it out. Okay? And I know it's hard if you're trying to do it on a computer, but that's how you need to go back and double check that even if all you do on a computer is this, you know, you have that beginning, show parentheses around the whole thing. Try to remind yourself, like, hey, there is something special happening there. Okay? And this is part of the problem about trying to do things, you know, through the computer where we're not handing paper copies to all of you. How do I solve for this? I take my x2, which happens to be 4, subtract my x1, which is -2, and I have to square it. Okay, my y's, y2 is 1, subtract 2, and I have to square it. And now I have to remember, hey, take the whole square root of everything. Okay, 4 subtract -2. Whenever I subtract a negative, it becomes positive. This is 6 squared. 1 subtract 2 is -1 squared. Bring back that square root. Square root again, 36 plus 1. It should equal the square root of 37. Not all numbers are always nice. What do we think? Where did we get lost? If you followed through, whether or not you had this negative or not, our subtraction, I understand. But this was what we needed to apply. Okay, the difference in x, the difference in y, you square each of those, and then take the square root of everything. Any questions on that one?
Did we just write square root 37? Or was
Yeah,
we actually...
that's it.
Okay.
You can leave it there. Do I have a hard time picturing that? I do. I don't really know what the distance is when you tell me square root of 37. And I'm thinking, okay, in order to get two numbers that multiply together like that are the same, close to 37, that's going to be more than 6. Like 6 times 6 is 36. 7 times 7 is 49. That's like way off. So it's going to be a little bit bigger than 6. But it's perfectly okay just to leave it at that square root 37. Okay? Let's look at the next one. Okay, 10 Again, I have to figure out what do I need to locate. Of course not. There we go. Okay. 10 says, find the coordinates of the midpoint. I need to find the midpoint of TU. Okay? T is located at -2, -1, only -1, -4. Both are negatives. U is at 2, 2. Both positive. Okay, I have a midpoint where I need to find the x and y. And I know that I can add my x coordinates together. That's my x, and divide by 2, and y, divide by 2. So I have 2 plus -1 over 2, and 2 plus -4 over 2. Do we follow so far? Okay. 2 plus -1 is 1. So I get 1/2. 2 subtract 4, -2 over 2. Is there another way I could write -2 over 2? Yes, I could write that as -1. So my midpoint is going to be 1/2 and -1. Well, 2 questions left. Any questions on that one? That one actually most people did pretty well as long as you found the correct points. And you didn't have any issues with the negatives. Okay. Number 11 says find a point V. Do I see a V?
No.
No. Okay. It says that U is the midpoint. So this one here is a midpoint. And this one here, S, is the endpoint. So I can use that midpoint formula where I say M, X, Y is equal to my X's divided by 2, my Y's divided by 2. I could use that. Okay. I need to be careful though that my coordinates for the midpoint go where the midpoint is. And my coordinates for an endpoint are substituted in for the X and the Y on the right hand side. Because I'm trying to find this unknown X and Y that is an endpoint. So I have U located at 2, 2. And I know that S is located at 4, 1. So my midpoint, which is really, in this case, U, okay, 2, 2 is equal to, now, this appears to be X1, this is X2. Does it matter if I switch them? Not in the least, because we're adding things together, okay? But I'm going to keep this as what I have here. X2 is my S, so I have 4 plus X divided by 2, and I should have 1 plus Y over 2. So now I separate them so I can solve independently for X and Y. Okay, here's another place where we have to be careful with the algebra. In order to get rid of the 2 on this side, I have to multiply by 2. So I get 4 is equal to 4 plus x. X equals 0. Okay, once again, be careful. Multiply both sides by 2. I have 4 is equal to 1 plus y. Y is equal to 3. So I should end up with coordinates of 0, 3. Now, there were a couple people that were really smart and said, I'm not going to spend any time on that formula. I don't even need it. You know what they did? They looked at this and went, okay, if this is the end point, and to get to the middle I had to go over 2 and up 1. To find the other end point, go over 2, up 1. Where am I at?
0 and 3.
0 and 3. I am proud to report both people were from this class. Nathan was one of them. How much easier was that?
It was a lot easier.
It was a lot easier. Do I have to do it that way? No. Can I do it that way? Yes. It's still using the same principles. He knows that this has to be in the middle. And both points are going to be in that same line and equal distance from that midpoint. So they both got the same answer. But this one takes you a whole lot more math. Okay? Last question. Maybe. If we can get there. Okay. Let's get rid of this mess. So a lot of times, it's not so much trying to figure out what you need to use, but I found that there were a lot of errors also just in the basic algebra. Okay? Be very, very careful with your algebra. Okay, so here it says that we have a ray, BA and BC are opposite. Okay, so this is one whole line, not a surprise, right? And it says that BD, here to here, this bisects. So this one and this one are congruent. Bisects means that these two are cut into equal pieces. Okay? Because we took EBC and cut it in half. That's what bisects means. We know that EBD is this, and DBC, which is the other half, is this. So how do I solve for x? How do I solve for x? Where do I begin?
Well, I mean, what I did I think was wrong. I really just said that 4x plus 16 equals 6x plus 4, and then I did algebra, and then...
Yeah, that's completely right, because we know that angle EBD equals angle DBC because ray BD bisects EBC. We know that these two are congruent. They're the same size. So 4x subtracted from both sides, I'm left with 2x here. 16, I subtract 4, and I'm left with x equaling 6. Is that everything? Have I solved it? If m is this, if this is this, find EBD. How can I find that? Angle EBD is equal to 4x plus 16, which is the same as 4 times 6 plus 16, which is equal to 40 degrees. Now, I just realized something as I got to the second part, knowing I needed to do this and this. We missed a part on an earlier question. I think. Do we have this down? Let me scoot back to right here. Did we, for number 8, find AC? We solved for x. For number 8, did we do the second part?
You can put x back into the equation.
I don't remember doing it either. And that's where, like, I would go back on my test and double check because I miss things. You do too, I guarantee. We're not robots, we're not computers that like go through and get everything just right the first time. Go back, double check. Okay, we found a value for x because we knew that x in the end, you know, if you go back to the video or go back through your notes, was 5, 6. We had 10 divided by 12x. Okay, that's where that comes from, was that we solved this, that we ended up with 10 equaling 12x, and so x has to be 5, 6. So what does that mean for AC? AC, we know, is 20x. So now I just need to put in 20 times 5, 6. I could say 100 over 6. I could try to simplify that and say, okay, well that's like 50 over 3. Again, we have a hard time picturing what 50 over 3 is. So could I try to put it as a decimal just so that I can comprehend it? You can, but it's best to leave it as exact as possible whenever you're answering things. Okay, unless you're asked to put it into a decimal. Okay? And we can plug this in and see, okay, does it work if I put it into here and add this? Will I get this whole thing of 50/3? I should be able to. Questions, concerns? My plan is literally I'm taking the whole test. Like I've taken that test and I have just switched numbers. Switched around which part I'm asking for, but it's the same questions. Same types of questions. Okay, for your comfort level. You know, as we go through it, was it quite as bad as you think now that you've seen how much work goes into this? It would help if Mrs. Leeson didn't make mistakes either. Okay, and I own up to them as I make them. But hopefully you're a little bit calmer about this. How many times did we actually apply the actual equations that were up here? Like, most of it was knowledge. We had these 4 different equations, right? We applied them, and let me get rid of this. Make it a little bit easier, especially for those at home to see me. In this case, for this particular test, they got applied really 1, 2, maybe 3, didn't have to. Three times. Just those ones. So don't think that you always have to like go elsewhere. Sometimes It has to do with all of these concepts that we learned over here and the relationships between them. Don't be afraid to use what you know here to apply to everything. Not everything's going to be here. Trust yourself to think through that. Okay? The process is just as important as, did I get the right answer? It really is. Okay? Any other questions on this? Not particularly? Where are we at on time? Pretty much bang on time. We have a couple minutes left. Okay? You don't have really technically any more homework due until Thursday. Yes, Thursday is your next assignment on 1/6. I've already started posting things for lesson 6 onto Google Classroom in the classwork. There is more to come, from our lesson here in class and from some other reference material that I need to make sure that you have so that you have it handy. Okay? But hopefully this will make things more comfortable for you. Study this. Okay? Go back through your homeworks. Believe it or not, Mrs. Leeson gives you plenty of feedback on everything that you do. Okay? And the reason why I give it to you is that you learn from it. So make sure you do that.